Good morning. I'm so excited to have you guys all join us today. As you guys, many of you all know me. I'm Jen Almeida. I'm the Director of Education for the Massachusetts Restaurant Association. For those students who have never met me, hey, this is a great way to do it. I'm so excited to partner with ACF for this really amazing presentation that they're going to give us today in this panel. And so I'm just going to pass it right along right now to Jackie. Jackie?
All right, thanks, Jen, and thank you to Mass ProStart for having us all here today. We certainly appreciate all of you tuning in for this important webinar as we'll discuss the importance of diversity in the food service industry. Now more than ever, it's important for culinarians to connect, to share, and to offer inspiration and mentorship, which is exactly why I wanted to kick off this new virtual series just for you, the future leaders of the food service industry. So we're super excited to have an extraordinary panel of professional chefs here for you today, who are members of the American Culinary Federation, and they are working as hotel chefs, senior dining chefs, cookbook writers, culinary entrepreneurs. You have a wealth of knowledge right here on your screen. And before we begin, as a note, we will be taking questions from you, the viewers, as we are able. Please use the Q&A function to pose questions to the chefs, and we did receive your questions that you submitted in advance. I'm Jackie Pressinger, American Culinary Federation's Director of Strategic Partnerships, and I'm honored to introduce our monitor and host for today, a friend, a colleague, and a very talented young culinarian. Chef Ashton Garrett is president of the ACF Young Chefs Club, which includes all ACF members under the age of 25. He's also the USA's Young Chefs Ambassador to the World Association of Chef Societies, and he has earned his associate's and bachelor's degrees from Johnson & Wales University. He's a ProStart program alumni and currently works as senior culinary manager at the Marriott Hotel in Cleveland, Ohio. I really could go on and on about him. I'm very proud of all of his accomplishments, but at this time, I'd like to pass it over to Chef Ashton to tell you a little bit more about himself. So take it away.
Thank you, Jackie. It's an honor to be here and to serve as a moderator for this tremendous presentation. I'm very, very pleased and excited to be a part of this presentation and with all these esteemed panelists that are with me. A little bit more background about myself, as Jackie kind of alluded to. So outside of my education, I've been able to study abroad in Italy and France, studying the arts of culinary arts and modern gastronomy. And I've also been able to be on the Food Network. I was a recent winner of Guy's Grocery Games on the Food Network in last March. So that was an honor to be there. And I also had the opportunity to cook at the James Beard House in New York City, being a part of the Tutto Toscana program with my study abroad college, which was Florence University of Arts. So again, I'm very, very excited to be here. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're talking about a very important topic in diversity inclusion, especially in the current climate of the culinary industry as well as the hospitality industry. So before we get into the questions, I would just like for each chef panelist to go introduce themselves and to talk about their background, where they currently are, some things about themselves that maybe the general public may not know. So I would like to introduce Chef Jennifer Booker as our first panelist. So Chef Jennifer, if you could just please tell us more about yourself.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you for inviting me. When it was for the Young Chefs Association, I wasn't sure if I had aged out, so I'm very flattered to be here. A little bit about myself. So I've been a chef right out of university, found my calling and have not looked back. Absolutely love it. Trained here in the States and at Le Cordon Bleu in Paris, France. Have a business, just launched a spice line actually in October, and I have 2 cookbooks that talk about the marriage between Southern and classical French cuisines. And I'm currently the Impact Fellow for the James Beard Foundation, and which means I travel, or used to, now I virtually travel, the US teaching chefs, culinarians, and home cooks how to run a zero waste kitchen. So I'm excited to be here with the students, are talking about what matters to them, and hopefully it can be of use.
Thank you, Chef Jennifer. Appreciate it. We'll next go into Chef Gabriel Rosado. Chef, would you please tell the audience more about yourself?
Sure. My name is Gabriel Rosado. I'm the executive chef and food service director here at Hartsfield Village in Munster, Indiana. That's a continuing care retirement community that's associated with community healthcare system. I've been here for roughly about 7 years. My background is country clubs, hotels, freestanding restaurants. I went to the Cooking and Hospitality Institute of Chicago, Le Cordon Bleu affiliated. Been in the business for roughly about 20 years. I am the vice president of the ACF Northwest Indiana chapter, and I am also a culinary instructor at Ivy Tech Community College.
Thank you, Chef. Thank you for being on the call. The last, but certainly not least, our final panelist, Chef Antoine Brinson. I see you're in the kitchen, Chef, so go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, well, first, congratulations on your accomplishments, man. I love to see young men coming up the ranks, doing amazing things. You're a real inspiration to a lot of folks out there. But my background, I graduate from CIA, your rival.
Absolutely.
I did a 3-year apprenticeship program at the Greenbrier in West Virginia also. I've spent the last almost 20 years of my career traveling nationally, internationally. About 4 years ago, I launched a company called Culinary Concepts here in Charlottesville, Virginia, that focuses on individuals that don't necessarily want to go to hospitality school or culinary schools, and they're in the industry and they're looking to get some certifications or some type of training. And my school is almost like a boot camp, a 5-week program, 5 days a week, 4.5 hours per day. You finish the program, folks, they get industry certifications. They get, we do a pop-up restaurant, and I have over 70 restaurant partnerships, and I connect them with career opportunities through cooking. So what this call is super important, because I feel like there's a lot of folks out there that are undecided of what they want to do and where they want to go. And, there's so many options. I think that your journey, hearing Chef Gabriel talk and Jennifer kind of talk a little bit about her journey and what she's working on, it really shows the diversity in the industry, and I'm really excited to be a part of the discussion.
Chef, thank you so much for being on the call. We're very excited. Thank you. So we're going to begin the conversation, just a general topic about diversity. And I would like to ask Chef Jennifer Booker this question. How diverse is the industry right now as a total, more so from a gender perspective as well as the cultural perspective? And I'll also ask the question to Chef Antoine as well once Chef Jennifer is done speaking.
Well, that's really a good question. And it made me think of when I was starting culinary school versus teaching, both high school and culinary college, Le Cordon Bleu in Atlanta, and then just working in the industry. So I would hazard a guess to say maybe there's less diversity than there was, say, 15, 20 years ago. I think part of that is we have a lot of diverse students that start culinary school, but perhaps are not prepared to continue their career in the industry. And so when you're actually, in the restaurant or on the line of wherever, hotel, resort, you don't see the diversity that maybe we did before. Also, gender-wise, it's still not a lot of women in the hot line, in the hot kitchen. Pastry, for sure, right, always, but we're still not really represented as strongly as we should be. And I would, again, hazard to say that we were. So, and we could talk more about the why of it, and it could be that we're maybe not meeting the students where they are and bringing them along with us and putting them in the kitchen. It could be that they don't see people that represent them and culturally, ethnicity, gender-wise, and so they don't feel a camaraderie, or maybe they don't feel welcome. So it's definitely worth exploring and talking about.
Absolutely, absolutely. To your point, I think it's very beneficial to have diversity, and represent itself in the industry. Chef Antoine, would you please weigh in on the question?
Jennifer, I feel like you hit the nail on the head with it. I would say, as Jay-Z said, is levels to it, right? I think that when you look at the kitchen, there is a ton of diversity on the lower tier. When you look at the dish pit, when you look at the prep stations, there's so much diversity in there, because that's kind of the low-hanging fruit. You really don't need to go to culinary school to get into these positions. It's kind of, I need a job and I want to get in the kitchen. But when you start to get into the line cook positions, the pantry positions, the junior sous chefs, the leadership positions, to Jennifer's point, you really don't see that much diversity in those ranks, partly because the folks on the lower tier, they don't realize that there's a career pathway for them in this. And I feel like that's a tribute to, you know, really the folks in the leadership positions developing people. And I genuinely believe that, you know, where I came up the ranks, where, you know, the chef was like, you got to work your way up, you know, you got to get to a point to where you can be a chef. And it was an honor, but it was a investment in the chefs into their team. And I feel like that investment is kind of gone away. And folks are more focused on the top three, right? You want to focus on your food costs, your labor costs, and your expenses. And they're driving that perspective of it. And that investment piece isn't there like it used to be. So to Jennifer's point, absolutely, you know, there's definitely not as much diversity in the kitchen because the leadership has shifted, the mindset has shifted.
Chef, you made a very interesting and great point about investment in development. You know, I've had the blessed ability to go through a manager and training program to get to the current role I am today. And I thoroughly believe without that 1 year, 1.5 year, program, I would not mold myself into a leader today. So I think it's more so the equity and opportunity for young chefs from a diversity level to reach those certain opportunities. So thank you for that. To kind of parlay off that, Chef Gabriel, you being in the certain position that you are in as an employer, right, and a leader of a multitude of different entities. So what is like the most important role for you or aspect for you in choosing diversity when you go through I should say an employment platform, or how you select different associates to be on your team?
Well, to be honest, our community, we have a very diverse community. We're in Northwest Indiana, so particularly with healthcare, we see a big wide range of different demographics, different genders. We actually have a lot of female leaderships on the executive level. So that diversity is really, really strong within our community. It really allows us to kind of recruit in a diverse aspect when it comes to looking at different backgrounds, genders, things like that. Yes, I don't need another me, right? So I'm not necessarily looking for another Chef Gabe. I'm looking for people who can bring different things to the table with different backgrounds, different ideas, different viewpoints. So when I'm interviewing, and during the interview process, we really kind of hone in on what people really want to do, what they want, what they're applying for, and what they're trying to get out of their career. And if we see somebody that can really bring something to the table and benefit our team, and again, it's really, really important to have that diverse thinking, that diverse culture in the kitchen, and then we have to teach respect, right? Respect is super big, because no matter whether you disagree with the next person or not, it's up to the management to set that tone in the kitchen. So when we bring some people in, we want the morale to be at a high level. So we want everybody interacting. We wanted to interact with our hourlies, even on the line, so everything like that. We need to set that precedence, and we need to establish that culture, and bringing in that group of diverse individuals really allows us to achieve that. And not to mention one aspect of our diverse crew, we actually partnered up with Tradewinds, which is an organization that really assists individuals with disabilities get on the right path in life to be successful, especially in a career setting, a workplace setting. So with that said, I'm very proud to say, bringing in those different type of individuals that obviously bring different things to the table, and that we can really make an impact in their lives as well, helps us all the way around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Chef. And actually sticking with you, Chef Gabriel, I want to ask the question. So we talk about this about a lot, actually, about evolution and how the current culinary structure in terms of food and preparation has, hit an evolutionary peak, from the standard brigade system to where it is now with this kind of this avant-garde kind of feel to it and different innovations and things like that. So that's from a culinary perspective, but do you see a certain evolution in diversity within just the people around, more so from a generational standpoint? What are you seeing young chefs kind of wanting to do or kind of targeting? I think, me personally, I think there's often a misconception and a divide between, the mentors and the mentees. And I think presentations like these are kind of help. So in your personal opinion, the evolution of, young chefs from when you first started to where it is now, what have you seen? Has there been any direct change?
Yeah, actually, I have seen a big shift. When I was coming up, it was kind of like somewhat the hard knocks, right? You had to kind of go through certain things the hard way. Like starting off in the dish area, you got to kind of progress. As Chef was saying earlier, it's all about at your starting point and then growing within the organization or the company. And as of right now, I think, some individuals want to get too far too fast, rather than, taking the time to really soak in the knowledge, learn to perfect certain things before they end up moving on to the next area of interest. But overall, there's a lot of individuals coming out of the culinary school that really want to come in the industry, but some of them may think that it's a little bit easier than what it really is, because obviously there's a lot to learn in our industry. At this point, I think I forgot a lot of things that I actually learned early on in my career. Just because I may not use particular skills on a everyday basis, or recall particular recipes. So it's all about hanging in there, making sure that people stay committed and not necessarily get too far ahead of themselves and think that they're already going to be on an executive level coming out of culinary school or training, or whatever that program may be for them.
Thank you, Chef. Thank you for that. Now, Chef Antoine, would you weigh in on that? I know you mentioned that you studied and did apprenticeship at the Greenbrier. What was that experience like for you? Did you see much diversity, during your internship?
I came up the ranks. One of my first jobs was at a 4 Point Sheraton hotel as a dishwasher, and coming up the ranks, I didn't see anybody that looked like me in leadership positions at all. And when I went to culinary school, I did my internship in the Caribbean. And it was the first time in my life that I seen folks that looked like me in leadership positions, in ownership positions, in entrepreneur roles. And it was a culture that was thriving. And it was for the first time in my life that I was, I felt like I was a majority versus a minority. And it really inspired me on my journey and showed me the possibilities of where I could go. I went from there, I continued traveling out there, and then, I ended up at the Greenbrier at a period of my career. And, I would say the experience at the Greenbrier really broke me down. There at the time, it was 3 certified master chefs there. And, it took me back to basics. It really kind of, it strips away everything you think, and they build you up with what you need. Right. And they really take you on that journey. And, our apprenticeship was, was an ACF apprenticeship. And I would say that experience right there, I don't know if the statistics are still the same. You would have 20 people enrolled in a class and you might have 3 to 5 graduate. I mean, it was extremely intense. But that experience shaped me as a person. It shaped me as a chef. And it really gave me the discipline that I've needed throughout my career to really break down barriers and break down walls. But the most important thing was the leadership and the mentorship. Those are the 2 most important things that they gave me, aside from cooking, aside from everything else. That guidance really, really helped me get to a point to where, what I do right now is give back through my organization. And that's what it's about.
Wow.
Well stated.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you for that, Chef. I think that's a great point, especially with leadership. Like me being a young chef, having certain leaders and mentors, that allow me to grow and allow my colleagues to grow, is extraordinary. Moving forward to Chef Jennifer, from an international level and perspective, you have an opportunity to study abroad and everything like that. Do you or would you credit diversity to that opportunity and exposing you to different attributes and things like that? And Chef as well, what opportunities, especially on a diversification level, can we see or are we seeing now in the industry that allow young chefs to have those opportunities?
Well, first things I want to say to Antoine was I did my internship at the Homestead, which is the sister property of the Greenbrier. And I would say there were 2 other Black chefs in the kitchen. That was it, and nobody else, and no females of any other color, were there. And so as far as the leadership there, the chef there was Chef Arnold Schnarweiler. And I just bugged him every day for months to have him finally start to mentor me. So it wasn't kind of that natural thing that happens with the apprentice program, which I missed, but I was lucky enough to just bug him into teaching me something. But being there was not diverse. There were no other female chefs in the kitchen on the hotline, and I had to fight to get there. But I learned a lot. And to answer your question, Chef, did diversity get me overseas to study abroad? Absolutely not. It was me really wanting to go and experience the French culinary cuisine primarily. And then, of course, Europe is small relative to United States. So you could just really travel other countries, try the food, shop, cook the different cuisines while you're there, but being kind of self-taught, or not self-taught, but learning with your own initiative. So I always tell students, like, you're gonna have to decide you wanna go and you wanna take that leap and you wanna learn and have that experience, because there's probably not anyone who's going to take your hand and say, hey, let's go to France or Italy and learn their cuisine, but it's part of your education. And to go back to kind of what Chef Gabe was saying about investing in your staff and investing in your employees, I know that as a female in the industry, there wasn't anyone that looked like me. There wasn't another woman, much less another Black woman, that I could bond or ask to mentor. So there are always male chefs. And so then you kind of try to look for kind of a non-white European chef to help mentor you as well. So I think for me, that's why a lot of that came down to, all right, here's the book on Italian cuisine. Let me start learning Italian cuisine. Let me see if I can find some Italian people to kind of teach me what they know. And then learning that way with a foundation of classical French cuisine. So you know the techniques and your knife cuts and your sauces, and growing your career that way. So yeah, don't wait for someone who's going to say, hey, let's go because you're a brown girl or a brown boy. And I'll take you to teach you the world of cooking. That would be wonderful, but probably very improbable to occur. And I do say, like, I believe you, Chef, and I think Chef Antoine said that you both went through the ACF apprentice program, which I didn't even know existed. And this is me going through culinary school. So I think finding students, reaching them where they are, middle school, high school students, and let them know, hey, there's a program that can take you from soup to nuts, get you in the industry without a huge debt, but knowing it's hard work and it is a career. It's not just fun and, Food Network.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Chef. That was a very candid answer. And I think the viewers really appreciate that. Before we actually get into a question posed by the audience, I have a question for Chef Antoine. So Chef, from your perspective, how can we begin to appreciate and really offer opportunities for younger chefs of diversity? So, anything from those that may feel, that me personally, I feel like there's a general fear complex when it comes to certain industry level positions, right? And, you know, coming fresh out of college and, you know, oh, I want to be this, or I want to be that, or I want to go in here, but I may lack the experience, or the diversification is causing me not to be able to do something. So, you know, how can we build a culture, if you will, from a culinary standpoint that appreciates and offers, you know, young chefs a diversification, not just within the current roles, but also from a character building perspective?
You know, I'm gonna share a short story to answer that question, and it's gonna help you understand my company. When I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. For those of you that pay attention on the news, everybody knows what happened in Charlottesville, you know, months ago, years ago. But you know, I came here as an executive chef, and you know, I opened up a private club. And going into that experience, I couldn't find qualified individuals to open the restaurant. I had 0 people apply for the jobs. And, you know, I posted an ad, you know, and I kind of came in, you know, from fine dining background thinking, I'm going to a small town, it's going to be easy to hire and find people. And, you know, talk about humility, right? I didn't have one person applying for the job. And I posted an ad that was like, are you passionate about cooking? Have you ever wanted to work in a professional kitchen? Send me your resume. And I had one guy, first the floodgates open. I had tons of people applying, but I had one guy like write a letter to me, and he thought that was a resume. And you know, I went into this opportunity, and I hired based off of passion. And you know, I had the greenest culinary team in the world. When I say green, I mean like day one was like, all right, guys, this is how you hold a knife. This is how you set a cutting board. And I taught them breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you know, and banquets. And you know, we went on. And my staff was 80% Black, and then the rest were Latinos, and I had a couple other races mixed in there, right? But the biggest thing that I was able to take away from that was, you know, these folks were just looking for an opportunity. They were just looking for something that spoke to them. So the first thing that I would say is, you know, when you're as a chef, when you're posting an ad, is your ad attracting the right type of person? You know, I think that a lot of the times if you don't have the experience and you don't have the confidence to go into, you know, a nicer restaurant, and you read an ad and it sounds above your vocabulary, you're not going to apply for it, right? And I think that that's what's happening, you know. So you want to make sure that, you know, as a chef or as a sous chef, whoever you're doing the job post, that what you're putting up there actually speaks to a wider variety of people. I would say from a diversity standpoint, to get people in the kitchens, I think you need to change your mindset. It starts here, right? Like if you go into this saying, you know what, I want the best sous chef out there, or I want the best saute cook out there, chances are that person is, you know, probably like 1 in 1,000 or 1 in a, you know, I would say it's a far stretch in finding that individual. But if you go into this saying that I want to find somebody that's passionate about cooking, somebody that has foundational skills that I can develop into being the best, chances are you'll have a wider net to cast, and you'll find more diversity in that cast trying to bring the people in. So, you know, from a leadership standpoint, it really starts with you and how you're viewing it and how you're attracting talent.
Thank you for that, Chef. That's a great answer. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Chef Gabriel, we have a question, and please feel free to answer, or any of the panelists, if you so choose. But to Chef Gabriel, from a orientation, from a sexual orientation, you know, do you see much diversity for just inclusion in general? You know, there's been a shift, of course, in certain communities especially within, you know, our culinary industry, that has welcomed and approved, welcomed, you know, different diversities into our industry. So would you weigh in on that answer?
Sure. A few years ago, we didn't really see as many maybe bisexual or gay or transgender individuals coming into the business, but within recent years, recent months, you see a little bit more of that. And from my understanding, you know, just a general population in the kitchen has become very accepting as far as, you know, any sexual orientation or anything like that. It goes back down again to respect for others. Right. And when you're recruiting anyone, we don't necessarily look at color. We don't necessarily look at gender. We look at skills. We look at desire to, be something, to do something. So we teach that within all of our employees on day one. It's about making sure that, we have each other's back. If one person fails, the next person fails. That's how we have to look at it. This is a team. This is, one unit. We need to work as that. And once we start working against each other and things like that, whether it's bickering, whether it's, judging any one individual in a particular way, it's detrimental to the team. So it's really upon the leadership to make sure they maintain that standards and that culture in the kitchen.
Absolutely, Chef. I think that's a great point, that you alluded to. And something actually one of my mentors told me is that, food knows no gender, disability, discrimination, age, whatever the case may be, gender, it just knows that, it needs to be celebrated and appreciated for those certain reasons. So for me, working along, other chefs, regardless of, gender, age, ethnicity, race, disability, orientation, whatever it may be, I think at the end of the day, somebody always has something to bring to the table. And if they don't feel necessarily comfortable, then it's up to, like Chef Antoine said, that leadership in creating a culture that's both conducive and appreciates, their associates as well. And leading into Chef Jennifer, if you can answer this question. So what is like the current climate of, racism or just in total generation diversity inclusion and the equity for not only young chefs, but also chefs alike in this industry? Maybe some personal experiences if you would like to weigh in.
That's like a really big question.
Right.
I would say, and not to just press the hot button too many times, but in the climate currently, and this is in our political climate in the United States, I feel that it's allowed systematic and racism to just come to the very forefront, right? And I compare it to the neighbor that has that wild, vicious dog, but it's always been on the chain. But now they've let it off the chain, right? So you knew it was there. Maybe you walked around that yard, but now it's everywhere. It's in your face. And it's racism, I feel, is more overt than it's been in my lifetime. And that bleeds into our industry, right? So there's an issue, there's always been an issue of being a female in the industry and being a leader over male counterparts. And that just may just be, men and women. But then when you throw in kind of the permission to be racist in our country right now, then it's really more difficult in the restaurant industry, in the food service industry, to go without having interactions that are fueled by ignorance or racism or, all of those kind of ugly things. And so, and I won't bore you guys with like experiences, but sure, I've had it. I've had it from being, called out of my name, being called a bitch, or being called, a racist epitaph. I've had it from being questioned my knowledge or authority or talent or skill because I'm a woman and a Black woman. So I tell every student, right? I tell every student, prepare for the worst, right? Expect the best, but prepare for the worst. Because chances are you will run into that in your experience, but you can't let that deter you from achieving whatever that culinary dream and goal is for you. And you have to be able to work with and work around those people. And that talks back to Chef Gabe and Chef Antoine about management, right? What is the culture in that kitchen? What are the upper level chefs and sous chefs and senior prep cooks, line cooks doing? And what is the tone that they're setting, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable? And I think we need to push that more in our kitchens, because they are becoming more diverse, even if it's just your prep cook and your dishwasher. No one wants to hear that joke. And everyone who knows me knows that I'm very no nonsense with that. Because if you're telling a Latin joke or a gay joke when I'm at the table, I know when I leave, you're telling a Black joke, right? So I'd set the tone for, we just don't do that at all. So
Thank you.
unfortunately, yes, I think it's worse.
Yeah.
I am hopeful that it'll be better, but yeah, right now it's not great.
Understood. Thank you for that, Chef. Really appreciate that. Chef Antoine, if you can just add in on that, and also can you answer the question, what do you do, mentally and also emotionally? How can you cope with that? And also a two-pronged question, if you will. Where can we as chefs begin to eradicate that just entirely from a cultural standpoint, and begin to invite and accept different races of everybody?
I worked in this kitchen. I'm not going to name any what kitchen it was, but I was executive sous chef at this property, and it was an older chef there, phenomenal chef, like phenomenal old school chef, and his entire team, I would say, good 75% of his team was Mexican, and I mean, when I say the team was badass, I mean they were really, really, really good. But, none of them were in leadership positions, and they have been working for him for almost like some 10 years, some 15 years, and none of them that came up the ranks. And I remember asking the question, I was like, Chef, why haven't you promoted, Julio or Javier? Like, how come, he was like, because they're good where they are. You just keep them happy and, and they're good. He was like, it's going to be really hard to replace that position. So, I don't want to lose that position. And it's the old school mentality of you're doing a great job and you're doing such a good job that I don't want to promote you, right? And that's the old school mindset of, I don't want to say holding people down, but like not embracing change and not embracing evolution, right? Because as individuals, we're all growing, we're all evolving. And I think that from a managerial standpoint, a lot of the times, especially with high staff turnover, you are afraid to lose that guy or that gal that's really good in that position. And you don't want to take them away, right? But this is where having strong SOPs in place, having good training things in place. This is where these small things that you kind of set yourself up with success, I call the foundation of building a kitchen, really allow you to grow your team. In all of my teams, I've grown all of my staff up, regardless if it was a food runner that made his way back to pantry station and that fast forward to now I have a couple of them that are sous chefs and executive chefs, or if it's a dishwasher that just wanted the opportunity that, grow them up to being able to run a line. I think that it's really about taking the time to develop the people around you, but you've got to get away from that old school mentality of scarcity and being afraid to invest in people because of the position, because you're afraid to lose that position. What was the second question? You had another question.
Yeah, Chef. It was just like more so from a cultural perspective. How can someone of a leadership? You kind of just answered it in terms of development, but diving deep into that investment in enriching the young chefs of the future, because we are the future, and we want to be accepted and included, and have an opportunity to invest in others. So from that perspective,
I would say there's two ways that you need to look at this. I would say the first way is, from an employer standpoint, and I'm a chef, and I get this. I mean, most of us, we've been in this position where, you got a position that you just can't keep somebody in it, right? And it might be your pantry position. It might be saute is too heavy, right? And everybody keeps quitting. But that's what I call scarcity, right? Where you're no longer looking at culture, you're no longer looking at anything. You're functioning in a place of, I just need a day off. I just need to fulfill this position, right? So from a chef standpoint, you want to make sure that, if you're in a position of leadership, that you're structuring yourself to be able to make those investments and to be able to see these things. Because if you're in a point of leadership and you're worried about somebody calling out, you're never going to get to a point to be able to look at diversity and inclusion, because you're only looking at it from one way. And from the guy that's coming in or the gal that's coming in that's looking for a position, you want to make sure you set goals for yourself. What is the goal? Don't go into a position and be like, I'm taking this job because they're paying $20 an hour, because that's going to get you nowhere. Money will come. Take a job for the right reason. Make sure you do your homework. Look at the property. Is this a place that I see myself growing at? Is this a place that I foresee myself being 2 years from now, being able to move up the ladder? Right? So you want to make sure that you do your homework as a young cook, as a young chef, before you take a job somewhere, to make sure that this is aligned with the goals that you've set for yourself. And I think that that's foundationally where it starts. When you get into the diversity, you know, when you go into these kitchens, with all of my students that go through my programs, I send them on job trails. All of my students are required to do 3 job trails before they graduate my program. And I do it intentionally. I set them up with different style restaurants, different type of kitchens, because I want them to go in and get the experience. You thought that you liked prep. I sent you to a banquet kitchen and you hated it. Guess what? We found out that it's not for you, right? And I think that this is the investment in yourself that you need to take first before you go in and take a job anywhere. I think that, you know, culture right now in the industry, when you look at, you know, kitchens and just the temperature of our country, you know, it's very divided, and especially for young folks that's looking to get into the industry, you're already going into it with a stigma, right? And what I would encourage folks that, you know, are looking to get into the industry, or if you're in the industry and you're looking for jobs, try to find a place that you can see yourself being comfortable in. Ask uncomfortable questions in the interviewing process to make sure that this is a place that you foresee yourself growing in.
Thank you, Chef Antoine. That's a tremendous answer.
I'd actually like to add to that, if I may.
Please, absolutely.
And it's as far as the management, the leadership in the kitchen. One way to avoid yourself getting put in that, you know, in that situation where you only have one person good on this one station, you know, it's very important to cross-train. Okay, anybody should be able to do any job in the kitchen. Now, whether they like to or not, that's something different. Okay, maybe we won't set that as your permanent position. But if I have a call off, if I have somebody, you know, that just for some reason can't make it in and can't work on that particular station, you know, we should be able to move employees around the kitchen and encourage them to kind of step out of their comfort zone as well. You know, it's okay to be uncomfortable in certain areas. It's okay not to like a particular position or a particular style of operation. But again, you know, step out of your comfort zone, learn as much as you possibly can, because that's only going to make you stronger as you continue to grow in your career.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Chef. Thank you. Chef Jennifer, question about particularly women in the industry. Have you seen particular a difference in pay when regards for women in the industry and also men? And also, what opportunities can women right now have to take to kind of bridge that gap and also create opportunities, like you said, where they can be able to go abroad and do different things like that?
I feel like you're asking me these obvious answer questions, Chef. Yes, there's a disparity in pay between male and female chefs in our industry. I believe that's across the board in every career in the United States. So that being said, as far as opportunities for women in the industry, they're huge, because when I was in culinary school, when I was working, you know, hotels and restaurants, there was the hotline. Like, that was the goal, like, ooh, the hotline. So over time, I think more positions in food service have come to the forefront. We know about them. So you don't have to work the hotline. And I'm speaking especially to the ladies who may want to have a family, who may want to stay home and raise the kids, who don't want to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week in the restaurant, which there's nothing wrong with that. We've always aspired to do that because it's exciting and passionate and we love it. But there may come a point where you look at other opportunities. And so there's writing a cookbook, so being an author, there's food styling, there's photography, there's research and development. You can find a private firm to work for, you know, a smaller company and be their personal chef. You can do catering. So there's a lot of other things that can happen in conjunction with working in a restaurant or a resort or in a commercial kitchen, or you can just do those specifically. And of course, there's education, right? So you can also teach. I say whatever it is, they all are together, right? So you're learning food photography or food styling because you've learned how to prepare a meal, to do a plate presentation, you know about color and texture and height and all those things that make a beautiful dish for your guests. And that translates into food styling, which translates into food photography. So you still have to have a solid basis of culinary education and of experience in the industry in order to get some of these other opportunities. But they are definitely there, and they keep you in the food service industry. And I would say now more than ever there's no sin in not working the hotline. Initially it was, if you didn't work the hotline, like, you're nothing, you're not a real chef. That's not necessarily true. You can still work in our craft and create beautiful food and have these beautiful opportunities and not spend your entire career in the kitchen. So I think everyone should understand that, men and women, and especially men and women who want to have a family and want to transition out of the kitchen. Because we all know it's hard, right? It's hell on your bodies. We're standing, we're moving, we're in one space and twisting. So at a certain point, you're going to have to step out of the kitchen and do some other things. And so I would suggest to everyone to look at what that is. Chef Antoine, Chef Gabriel said, like, what do you want to do when you come into that job? You know, come in with a mindset, come in with a plan. What am I going to do in 3, 5, 10, 20 years? Because there's going to be a time where, which may be this time in our pandemic, where you're not going to work. So how are you going to make a living if you can't cook in the kitchen? So I would say just always have that in the back of your mind. What's my plan? I'm working my plan.
Thank you for that, Chef.
Sure.
Thank you for that. Before we wrap this up, I would just like to ask, one final question, beginning with Chef Antoine, then moving on to Chef Gabriel, and finally ending with Chef Jennifer. So we've talked a lot about diversity and diversity inclusion. In your personal opinion, why is it so important, and where do you see it going from here? Why even talk about it? When obviously for whatever a long span of time, things have been working out okay. In certain operations, in certain kitchens. So why is changing even necessary? So Chef Antoine, would you please answer that?
I'm going to give you an example of what happens, before pre-pandemic, right? I've had classes where I've had folks from Nigeria, Afghanistan, Syria, local folks from the community here, from different walks of life in this class. And what I found was absolutely amazing. In the morning, they bring in dishes from their culture and they're sharing with each other and they're building with each other. They're saying words to each other. Like, how do you say this in your language? Oh, how do you say that? Or I've never heard that before. Can you teach me how to say that? Just being able to share, having people of different backgrounds in the same room together, it's an energy that, you just can't get from anywhere, man. It just happens naturally by having that diversity. I think a lot of times in kitchens, I consult. I consulted with this one kitchen, and you had the folks that were African descent on one station. They were from Ghana. I had some folks of Latino descent. They were over here on this station, and it was segregated. And I was like, why is your station like that? He was like, oh, they work better that way. I'm like, man, you need to break the barriers down, man. I mean, I think that as a chef, it's important to recognize the power of your team being able to come together with culture. Culture is everything, man. Food is one thing. Food brings people together, but culture changes the generations, man. Culture really changes the menus. It inspires you to think differently. When you start asking people about what they grew up eating, it's going to inspire you to think about your menus differently. So I think that from a standpoint of growth, having a diverse environment in your establishments, or just in putting yourself in an environment that's diverse, it's only going to help you on your culinary journey.
Thank you, Chef. Chef Gabriel?
Absolutely, definitely agree 100%. And it's all about, giving your employees an opportunity, just another opportunity to learn that much more, because when people bring different ideas, different backgrounds, different views to the table, I know there's a lot of employees that help me learn something every day, and I'm not the one that says, hey, I know everything, it's my way or the highway. No, I want opinions from every one of my employees. They're the ones on the lines doing it. They probably have a better idea or better insight of what may work and how to strengthen certain things. So when you bring all those diverse individuals, I think it just really helps teach everybody some things that they normally wouldn't have thought about or, experienced, when you have so many different people with different backgrounds. So I think it's only an opportunity to strengthen your team as a whole.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And finally, Chef Jennifer.
Sure. I say when you ask the importance of diversity, I think the most obvious is having someone that looks like you. So you feel like you can relate with that person immediately because perhaps they come from where you come from and you have that in common. I think diversity adds a different point of view in how we look at cuisine. And it may be the exact same dish, but looking at it from another culture of, well, how do you prepare your collard greens? Oh, well, we braise ours. Oh, we have ours in a salad, or, we put ours in a soup, or we chop ours and cook it with garlic or whatever. So it gives you a different point of view. It gives you a different cooking technique. It gives you a history that you didn't know, right? So you're learning from these other cultures. But most importantly, it validates all cuisines, because I think we often fall into thinking that, say, classical French cuisine is the epitome and the only. And yes, it's the basis for my upbringing and my culinary training, but I understand that there's, hundreds, thousands of other cuisines equally as important. So it validates those cuisines, and it teaches us that being diverse means we're all richer because we're learning from one another, we're giving to one another. And as a culinarian, as a lifelong learner, we're learning as we go, and we're learning so much more that makes what we produce benefit from that.
Chef, thank you so much. All the chef panelists, thank you so much for joining.
Hey, Ashton, can I say something really quick?
Yeah, we're actually gonna end. If you guys, if all the panelists would like just to end with your final thoughts. So Chef Antoine, and we'll just do the same rotation, and we'll end the call then. Go ahead,
I want to shout out something that Chef Jennifer said. And this was in the last question where she was talking about, if you're a woman in the kitchen or you want to do something different. Over the last 10 years, culinary and hospitality has diversified so much. I mean, and Jennifer, what you just said, it's beautiful, right? Like, you can be a food stylist, you can be anything you want to be, right? But foundationally, you need to understand how to cook, right? Right? You gotta know how to cook. So, set a goal, right? I want to be a food stylist. Learn food, learn culture, learn cuisine, right? Learn. Jennifer just said it. Lifelong learner. All of us on the call, we're lifelong learners. My library is ridiculous. I was reading genealogy yesterday, right? Like I'm always learning. And I think that, the most important thing for folks out there that are, you're unsure, do I want to be in the kitchen or do I not want to be in the kitchen, is to sit down within yourself and spend some time in introspect and really think about what it is that you want to do and what is it that you're trying to accomplish. I think every culture, every individual, every race, every gender has something unique to bring to the table. Find your uniqueness and go ahead and take it out to the world and show them what makes you so different, man. And I promise you, if you drive it, it won't let you down, man. You're going to get somewhere. Yeah, you always will get somewhere.
Thank you for that, Chef. Appreciate that. Chef Gabriel?
Yes, absolutely. One big thing I want everybody to take away is definitely respect for others. Definitely respect for others. It goes a long way. Learn new things about each individual that you're surrounding yourself with, or that you're in the kitchen with, and most importantly, have that dedication and that desire to be successful, and keep your put your mind to it, stick with it, and it should all work out in the end.
Thank you, Chef. Appreciate you. Thank you for your time. Chef Jennifer?
Sure. I would say I'll just throw a couple words out. And, I've been called, when people are being kind, tenacious, right? And then there's, of course, assertive. And then there's, of course, the word aggressive. But to me, all those mean being a trailblazer. So when you go out being maybe one of a few, or maybe the only one in your job or where you are in your business, that's okay. You're being a trailblazer for culinarians that are coming up behind you. So know that going in, and know that they'll appreciate that and you'll learn from it. Also, our careers evolve. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm married to the hotline, or I can only do photography, or I can only do education. That's not true. And I'm definitely a testament to that. You know, out of culinary school, hard charging. I wanted to work that hotline like it was everything. And then you see other things that you want to do. So push yourself forward, you know, be assertive, be tenacious, and say, well, I want to do it. And let me show you I can do it. And don't take no for an answer in a respectful way, because chances are, you know, that's your boss. You want to keep your job. But just go out, be that trailblazer. Know that you're representing not just yourself or your gender or your race, but you're also representing food and culinary. And always be proud of that, and always be gracious in that.
Thank you, Chef. And to all the panelists, from the bottom of my heart, I really just want to express my gratitude and really thank you for elucidating your experiences, telling, you know, the future, you know, and highlighting some certain things. So it really means a lot to me. If I can leave a final word, you know, to the chefs watching and the younger generation, is there are no boundaries, there are no limitations. You know, as all the chefs on this call alluded to, you know, you are your greatest, you know, boundary. You know, you yourself. You know, if you put a limit on yourself, you will always have that limit on yourself. So take it off. You know, there is no ceiling. You know, just reach for the stars and keep on going, keep pushing. So to every chef on this call, to Chef Antoine, Chef Gabriel, and finally Chef Jennifer, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. At this time, I'd like to pass it back to Jackie for the conclusion.
All right. Well, just an excellent discussion. Thank you all so much for your time, and a huge virtual round of applause for our culinary experts today. We really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your insights. We hope that you will join us on our next webinar featuring Chef Ashton, and that will be January 14th. You will actually have the opportunity to cook right along with Chef Ashton. I don't know, I heard something about ceviche, maybe crepes. So it's gonna be excellent. Nice. So make sure that you tune into that and register for that, or have your educator register you. So on behalf of the ACF National Office, thank you very much to the panelists, to Chef Ashton, to Massachusetts ProStart for this opportunity. And thank you all for joining in today. We'll look forward to seeing you next month, and have a great holiday. Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thanks. Happy holidays.
Take care.